Hi, I'm Stuart Solwin, and I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the statute of limitations for misdemeanors here in Arizona. All misdemeanor crimes have what is called a statute of limitations. The statute of limitations is literally a law, otherwise known as a statute, which puts a time limitation on when the state can bring criminal charges against you, starting from usually the date that you're arrested for the crime. In other words, if the state has evidence to suspect that you're guilty of a crime, they can't just leave that crime hanging over your head for the rest of your life with the potential threat of the state being able to file criminal charges at any point. It would be pretty ridiculous if you were arrested for a DUI when you're 25, but no criminal charges are brought, and then all of a sudden, when you're in your 40s, the state suddenly charges you with that DUI that occurred over 20 years ago. That seems unfair, and it would be a ridiculous way to go about operating a criminal justice system. And that's why the legislature passed these types of statute of limitation laws in order to eliminate the possibility of something like that happening. Now, for those of you who want to look the law up and read it for yourself, the Arizona law that provides a statute of limitations on misdemeanors is codified in the criminal code under ARS 13-107, and a link to that law is going to be provided in the description of this video. So, what is the time period provided by the statute of limitations for misdemeanors? Well, in Arizona, the statute of limitations is 1 year. So in general, if you're arrested for committing a misdemeanor crime, the state will usually have to bring those charges within 1 year of the arrest. And if they don't do that within the time period, then they can't bring the charges. But there are some exceptions to the law and things that can complicate the time calculations. First, the statute of limitations does not automatically start to run from the date the crime occurred, not always. Instead, the statute says that the time limit starts either 1 year after actual discovery by the state of the offense, or within 1 year of when the state should have discovered the offense through the exercise of reasonable diligence. So, if a crime occurs on a Monday, but the victim does not report the crime to the police until Friday, then the statute will usually start to run on that Friday when the state has actual notice of the crime. That being said, usually for people charged with misdemeanors, they'll be arrested for the crime soon after it happens. In almost all cases, if an arrest occurs, the state will have actual notice of the crime at that point. So, usually for misdemeanors, if you've been arrested but charges have not yet been brought, and you don't have a court date to appear in front of a judge to address those charges, the statute of limitations has probably already started to run on your case on the date you were arrested. Also, if you live outside of the state, the time that you're not in Arizona does not count towards the 1 year statute of limitations. In the exact words of the statute, it says, "The period of limitation does not run during any time when the accused is absent from the state or has no reasonably ascertainable place of abode within the state." Now, in this, abode is another word for a residence or usually a home. So, let's say you don't live in Arizona and you don't own a home here. Maybe you were in Arizona on a trip and you committed a crime that's considered a misdemeanor. Maybe you got kicked out of bar because they allege you committed disorderly conduct or trespassing. Well, if charges don't get filed and you leave Arizona, the clock for the statute of limitations stops. So the state can choose to wait, if it wants, until you're back in Arizona before it files those criminal charges, even if this doesn't happen for more than a year, which is when the statute of limitations will usually run until. So that's one common way that the statute of limitations can be extended. One thing to also keep in mind is that the statute of limitations is different from your right to a speedy trial. The statute of limitations is a law that says when the state has to start a case. Once a case is started by criminal charges being filed, the statute of limitations is satisfied. Then, after that, there are other time limits that start to apply. This includes your constitutional right to a speedy trial, as well as what is called Rule 8 time, which refers to a rule in the Arizona Rules of Criminal Procedure that says when the state has to bring your case to a trial. We're not going to go into the details of those rules here. That's a subject for a whole nother video. But I wanted to point out that the statute of limitations only talks about how long the state has to start a case, not how long a case can remain open. And it's important to keep that distinction in mind. Now, if you've been arrested for a misdemeanor, but you don't have criminal charges against you yet, and you want to try to find out what's going on and whether the statute of limitations may have run, it's in your interest to talk to a criminal defense attorney to see whether legal representation could help you. Your case may be in what's called the pre-charging stage of an investigation, where a crime has allegedly occurred, but the state hasn't filed charges yet. During this stage, a defense attorney can work to try to see if he can convince the state not to bring charges at all. I offer free consultations for criminal defense matters, and if you've been arrested or charged with a crime, feel free to reach out to me and give me a call or visit my website for more information.